Paul Davids recently made a video whereby he invited 10 guitarists to improvise or play over a backing track that he had created for them. Included in those guitarists were some of my favourite YouTubers, guys like Rick Beato, Danish Pete, Chris Buck. Wow, what a player he is, by the way. You have to check out his solo over this track straight after this video. I have recreated the backing track using the same chord structure that Paul gave to these guys. And today we are going to deep dive into how we can improvise over this in 3 different kind of levels, if you like. Now, I will say that my only gripe with the original video was that it is labelled as an improv challenge, and a few of the guys actually said they constructed or composed solos. There is nothing wrong with that, but today we are going to look at the tools which you can use to just improvise. I always say this, but embrace the suck. It doesn't have to sound perfect all the time. A word on that backing track, if you would like this, I will upload this for free if, say, we get, 1,000 likes on this video. So if you do want that backing track, please smash that like button and I will upload it for you to play over. Guys, without further ado then, let's take a look at how we can play over this backing track. So first, let's take a look at the harmony then and what's involved. So the track itself is in the key of C major. Now, I would implore you to understand how we harmonize a C major scale or how we build chords on every step. That is the most important thing first. I believe that's the most important fundamental thing you can do for any kind of diatonic improvisation. It's just, yeah, it's a must know. So by that, I mean we can build a chord on every degree of the C major scale. So on chord 1, we would have C major. Chord 2, we would have D minor. Chord 3, we would have E minor. Chord 4, we would have F major. Chord 5, we would have G major. Chord 6, we would have A minor. Chord 7, we would have B diminished technically at the minute, so we'd have, and then we would have C major again. Let's just harmonize that scale now with 7th chords. That's the next step, if you like. So we've got C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G dominant 7, A minor 7, B minor 7 flat 5, back to C major 7. Now that we understand that, we can understand the function of the chord structure. So you might be thinking, why does the backing track go C major to E7? This kind of sound. Now, essentially, on chord 3, we usually have a minor 7 chord, but in this case, no, we've got a dominant 7th chord. Dominant 7th chords usually resolve to some kind of 1. So if you're familiar with this already, that would be like an A minor 7 chord, if you like. But we do this kind of false resolution where we go to chord 4, which is in the key, that's F major 7. So that 3-7 chord, this one, the E7, that's almost like a secondary dominant with this kind of like false resolution to the 4, if you like, to the subdominant. So you've got this. And then essentially it goes to chord 5, which is G, back to C again. So that's kind of straightforward in terms of harmony. That is just like 1, 3, 7, 4, 5, and then 1. The next time it does the same kind of thing, except it just stays on 4 for longer before going to 1. Now, the real interesting part, though, is when we get to this F minor chord later on. Now, this sounds like this. We get... Now, what is going on there? Essentially, this is borrowing from the melodic minor scale. If you are not familiar with that scale, I do have a video lesson on that, a brief introduction to it, and some ideas that you can use there. What we are doing is turning chord 4, essentially, into a minor chord. But it's not just a minor chord. We can play a minor major 7. That's really important. That's where the melodic minor sound comes from, if you like. So that is the only crazy element in terms of harmony. How do we play over it then? The first place to start will be a C major pentatonic or A minor pentatonic. Now you can sound cool with this just using that scale. Let me demonstrate that for you now. So this is level 1. hopefully that sounds cool to your ears. That was just the major pentatonic, or A minor pentatonic. So why does that sound cool? Well, essentially, it's down to a number of factors. It's about time feel, it's about vibrato, it's about accurate bends. By that I mean them being in tune. It's about conviction, essentially, so really attacking the notes properly. I know they are four huge subjects. I have covered a few of these in my free lessons on a Friday, but yet there is nothing worse than hearing a phrase that ends with bad vibrato. I think Ross Campbell and I talked about this, but something like this is going to make that improvisation sound bad. So if you play a phrase like, it's just not good. It ruins everything. So 4 elements I think to focus on there. It is bending, vibrato, time feel, and conviction. They are the things which I would look at first. Now, let's move on then to level 2. So level 2, we're just going to mix 2 pentatonic scales this time. We're going to take the C major pentatonic. We are also going to take the C minor pentatonic, this one. But there is something special that we are going to do there. This is where you should start to look at intervals then. So in the minor pentatonic, we have what is called a minor third interval. What we are going to do is bend that up every time, but not all the way. This is how the blues players like Clapton, people like that sound cool. It's bent actually a little bit out of tune. I believe that Paul Davids did a video on this quite a while back, but he's absolutely spot on. The major third is never quite a major third. It's in between. We get something like this. Or so when you are playing the scale, I literally want you to focus on the idea that we will bend that minor third every time to give us that kind of filthy blues type sound. So let's give that a go. Let me try a take. Why does that work then? Well, essentially, it's because we're getting all of the juice out of that minor to major third, but not quite all the way. It's really important that when you try this, that you experiment with where that fits. So it will fit over like the C major chord. It will fit over the E7. It will kind of work over the F, but it will work definitely over the G. I love doing that over the 5 chord, playing like the root minor pentatonic, essentially, you know, or the home key minor pentatonic. It sounds filthy in my opinion. So focus on those bends. Again, it's the same steps as step 1: vibrato, time feel, conviction. You can technically make anything work, any scale over any chord, if you've got those things, I think, anyway, the conviction, you know. So let's move on then to the final step, or level 3. So this involves a lot more mental capacity, shall we say. What we want to be doing here is hitting chord tones. So what do I mean by that? Well, essentially, each one of these chords has an arpeggio that will go with it. Essentially, arpeggios are just broken chords. In fact, some of them have a few options, but if we start all the way with chord 1, C major 7, we could take a C major 7 arpeggio. For chord 3 then, we could play an E7 arpeggio. play a diminished arpeggio built from the flat 2. Why? Well, essentially it sounds really cool. It gives that sound of an altered chord, like an E7 flat 9. So we get something like this with the E root, so that kind of sound. Then for chord 4, simple, we just play an F major 7 arpeggio. Chord 5, you can play a G7 arpeggio. Or you can treat that as just the same as F over G, this chord. It's lovely, a G11 chord. So you could play F triads over that, for example. Now, all of the next section is obviously the same, but there is one other chord in there, this one. Some people will just play it as like a straight minor triad. I think I heard that a few times. There was one guy, though, I believe it was from That Pedal show, where they basically said that you can play melodic minor. That is spot on. It's this arpeggio that we would use, a minor major 7. So it's the same as the chord. We've got this. That sounds wonderful over that chord. So there we have it. What we are wanting to do is target those notes from within the chord as we improvise. So this is the third and final level, I think. Let's just try it. So what was going on with that then? Essentially, we were trying to land on chord tones, notes from the arpeggio. When we do this, it really does nail the sound of the changes. So I would implore you to learn your arpeggios in all 7 positions, if you like, of the fretboard. Just, it makes playing over things like this sound way cooler, I think anyway. It's the true playing the changes, if you like. That's the highest level, I should say. Now, what else can we do though? Well, we could look at playing a scale for each one of these chords. So if we started with, for example, C, we could play a C major scale for that. Over this 3 dominant 7th chord, because that's kind of like an altered chord, we could play the E altered scale or superlocrian, which would be this. Over chord 4, we could play F Lydian. Over chord 5, if you wanted to, you could play G Mixolydian. Some people will say that's the same as C. I try to think in terms of intervals, so I'll do that separately, but G Mixolydian anyway. Now, the final chord to tackle then will be the F minor major 7 chord. Now, the scale that we will play over that is the F melodic minor scale, which would be like this. Sounds really cool. You just get that little bit of tension in there. What we could do though to really test if we know this is to limit ourselves. I believe limitation exercises are the best. So here we come with the bonus level, shall we say. This is me playing over this track just using 1 string. I am just going to try the B string, but I'm going to try and nail the chord changes. I'm going to try and play the pentatonics. I'm going to try all of the things which we did before and see if I can make this sound musical. So without further ado, this is the 1 string challenge. So hopefully you could hear the chord changes there, even when I was limited down to that single string. I'm a firm believer in that exercise. Limitation is always your best friend in terms of getting the most musicality into your phrasing. I mean, we could take that another level again and throw in crazy things like chromaticism and chord substitutions and stuff like that. Maybe I should do that as I play you guys out. But first, I just want to say, please like, comment, subscribe, click that little bell for notifications. I make free lesson content every Friday on this channel. I also have a ton of lessons available on my website. So if this is something that you want to get into, check the links down below. You can stream those lessons, you can download them. There's tons of stuff there. Guys, also check out Paul David's original video on this. There are 10 amazing solos from some really cool YouTubers there. Without further ado then, guys, until next time, cheers.